good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, Ger. How are things?
Good.
Great to be on.
This Cork-Kilkenny rivalry has been bubbling along nicely for the last number of years. What stage in the cycle are we at the moment? Is it as intense as it used to be?
Well, to be honest, how things have ran this year, Ger, is that, Kilkenny themselves haven't essentially been tested really in the group stages, and they would have a lot of, I suppose, in-house games amongst themselves coming into this Saturday in order to get the intensity up. That would be my view and my opinion. And then you have Cork on the other side who are down a game. They got given a bye essentially against Offaly in the first round, and they've struggled in patches against their opposition in the group stages. But obviously they had a really good run out in their last game, last round of the championship, and they're in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this Saturday. So they'll be fancying themselves at least ahead of Saturday.
Some Cork team has to do well in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this year at some point, right after what Tipperary did last weekend. So they'll be looking to cast that aside. Cork playing Camogie and women's football in Páirc Uí Chaoimh is actually a big deal. This is one of those kind of stories that we've had over a number of years. So it's good that these are a double header in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this weekend.
Yeah, of course, and it's the ideal venue really, Ger, for Camogie players around the country to be able to display their skill and execute how the game should be played. It's a fabulous stadium. The space that you can find there, you can play all types of systems and all types of ball. So it'll only enhance, I think, the two matches that will take place on Saturday, and with Ray and Owen refereeing the two games, I can't see the whistle being blown too much. It's going to be a physical game on both sides. So Páirc Uí Chaoimh is a perfect venue for that.
What is the Galway Tipperary? So a lot of people are going to be tuning into these games this weekend, probably for the first time. What kind of what's the pecking order here in the Galway Tip game and in the Cork Kilkenny game? Sounds like you're making Cork slight favourites.
Well, yeah, essentially that would be for me, it would be Cork to edge this weekend. I think the battle really, there's going to be key battles around the field within the match on Saturday. The question of Anne Dalton, where is she going to play? She could pop up anywhere in the field. I think if she's central in the field, probably she will be picked up by Hannah Looney for Hannah Looney's athleticism. She's really in top nick at the moment, and she's used to American high-profile players. But for me, Anne would be the distributor of the team, and she'd be able to set up the set plays. Then you have the likes of, for Kilkenny, really Denise Gall has scored 224 in the entire championship without really going into second or third gear. I would feel from looking at her throughout the championship. So they're two key players for Kilkenny. Then in terms of where you're going with Cork, like Orla Cronin's used to being at 11 but coming out to the middle of the field. They do that slightly just to enable them to bring the ball through the hands in the middle third and to open up space inside. So there'll be tight matchups in the Cork and Kilkenny game. Amy O'Connor obviously is going to be a threat up front for Cork. You're possibly looking at Davina Tobin, I'd imagine, trying to mitigate that threat. And then you could be looking at Anna Farrell, possibly picking up Aisling Thompson. But the key for me in the Cork and Kilkenny game, because they're two kind of loose teams that can play a lot of hurling. But the key for me is who's going to get the hands on the body in terms of breaking the momentum of each other's attack. For me, Cork to edge. And it's funny, Ger, that you have Cork and Kilkenny as a curtain raiser, which is unheard of really in the tradition of Camogie. So that's obviously the first game. And then you're looking at Tip and Galway, and Tip are on a high down there at the moment. Tip have a few really interesting narratives ahead of Saturday. Obviously, you've the wow factor of Aisling Maloney. She plays with the Tip footballers and down in Australia as well with the Aussie rules. But she came in the last day, and I know she's only had 40 minutes of championship play, but she really had a huge spark, added huge energy to the team. And I think if she could start ahead of Saturday, that will really be an interesting battle in the middle of the field, especially with Galway, the likes of Niamh Kilkenny and Aoife Donoghue. They're so experienced. I don't think Tip will fear Galway. I really don't. They've nothing to lose. The word is around that. They're not even considering what Galway are kind of systems are set up. They're just looking to get on ball and play their own game, which is fantastic. So that's going to be an intriguing battle then in the second game.
What kind of systems are Galway using at the moment? How would you characterise what they're trying to to do in a game, and what is their overarching philosophy?
Yeah, so like all their attacks start with defence. You know, they've quite a transitional attack. So like Sarah Dervin in the full back would be obviously the stalwart of the team, the captain of the team. She would be the marshal of the team. They like to kind of spread ball down each side of the channels there. They also like to play two inside at times. So you'd probably end up with the McGraths inside. Aisling O'Reilly might possibly come out, you know, in around the half-forward line. It'd be interesting who's going to pick Aisling up, actually. You know, you could have Mary Ryan. Will she sacrifice her game, you know, for Tip in order to mitigate her? Then you have Siobhan Gardner for Galway at centre-back. You know, she loves to spread ball from the back out as well. But really, Aoife and Kilkenny play this, or Aoife and Eve Kilkenny play this kind of transition in the middle of the field there, where by kind of one of them will obviously hold, the other one will go forward, but the ability to go back and support their defence in order to set up that attack moving forward. That's what Galway will be looking to do. They're so strong though, Ger. Like, they're so physically strong. They're able to break, tackle. They're able to run and support off the shoulder. They're going to be a tough team to beat now. But I think with Tip are going to give it all they have. My call would be Galway to win. But in terms of Tip's energy and their athleticism and youth, it's going to be a fascinating battle.
When you talk about that transitioning game, is that essentially a possession game which requires a high level of execution? It's short passing, it's both hand passing and short stick passing. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's very much through the hands as well. But Galway can play that, and they can also play the long ball into pockets as well up front. And how the success of that long ball game for Galway is how they set up inside. So as I said before, like you would have the McGraths inside, or like they're so versatile, they'll rotate their 5 or 6 forwards with ease. But they always, from what I've seen in this championship, there is that they hold a structure that their half forward line just stays slightly out to the middle of the field, where to create that space inside. And then, as I said before, they have the ability to play that supporting game. So you have the runners coming through from the middle of the field up, and they can score at ease. For me, Galway's execution as well from play has been superb. So Tip will have it all to do. But again, they'll have no fear. Like, there's nothing better than going into a championship game being wrote off by everyone. Really and truly, it's the only way to do it. You go in with no anxiety, no fear, no expectation placed upon you. So they'll thrive off that now come the weekend. Plus, they rely on their star players. You know, you'll have Kite Devan, and you'll have obviously Roisin Howard as well. Like, they've been in form throughout the year. So I think Galway, in my opinion, have the depth within the panel if something goes wrong for them. Like, they got an awful shock last year in the quarterfinals against Waterford. And they really had to dig deep to get out of that situation. They ended up to go on and win the All-Ireland, of course. But, you know, I think Galway have depth in their squad in order, if a situation that Tip presents to them, and they'll just have the manpower to roll off or change systems, or the ability to get over the challenge of Tip on Saturday.
Oh, and you look like you had a question there.
So what are we thinking here, Mags? We're thinking Cork against Galway in the final then?
I'm a bit I'd be a bit more I'd reserve my thoughts on Cork and Kilkenny a lot more, but I think Cork will edge it just because of the home venue and their experience in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. If they can shut down Kilkenny's key players, they should win it. But I think the one thing that Kilkenny has over Cork is their scoring ability, especially from range. Like, Cork haven't brought that to the foe this year at all. Cork much prefer to run the ball through the middle third. That's their style of play from what I've seen this year. Where Kilkenny are just so natural at being able to swing the ball over the bar from any form of range. If Kilkenny get those opportunities, Kilkenny, I feel, will win, but just on the form at the moment, with Kilkenny not really being tested, I will say Cork for the first game and Galway for the second game. So you're looking at a Cork-Galway final possibly on December 12th.
We were talking to Tony Kelly earlier on, and he was telling us about how he's enjoying winter hurling so much. Have you seen that across Camogie and hurling in the championships this year, that certain players have adapted better to the conditions, and there has been a surprisingly brilliant element to all of this in ways that many people perhaps wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, I certainly think it would favour a certain type of player. Um, the player that loves the physical challenge, the player that loves winning the ruck ball. They would thrive off winter hurling, and you've seen that in the college's sense as well. The running game doesn't quite work as well in the winter hurling or camogie. So those kind of aerial duels, those ruck balls, they are favouring probably the stronger players. I won't name her name, but I know Kilkenny stalwart mentioned earlier on in the season that she was looking forward to the winter hurling, just simply because she's at a certain vintage in her career, and it would suit her better possibly than being able to shove a young girl off the ball, a light young girl off the ball in a ruck. So I certainly think it does suit a certain type of player. Is it more enjoyable? I think it's all about the surface as well, if I'm being honest. There should be no excuses really in Páirc Uí Chaoimh to continue a ruck ball in tough undergrowth on the ground. You should be able to move the ball, and so the quality of play shouldn't be sacrificed. But I do think it suits a certain type of player, all right.
Is your own role clear next season yet? Has that all been decided with Wexford? Do we know? Is that public knowledge? I mean, you might know, but not be willing to tell us just yet. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so obviously we had a very disappointing end to the season this year. A few honest conversations were all had amongst the group, and we know there's huge capability within the group to move on and do something big. So everyone's looking forward already to the new season. I think you all know how Davy operates. It's very much, analyse what next ball. He has a huge positive mindset, and players on the group and the backroom team thrive off that. I will be involved next year, but we're just working out the finer details on that at the moment.
Okay, how did this year go for you in terms of that experience? What was that like?
Look, I've had a fantastic time with the group, and let it continue into next year. It's my third year now, so being how I've come along, I suppose my journey as such is very much an internship, and I started off as kind of an assistant goalkeeping coach, and then my interest for the greater play and how it all works, out the field grew. I wanted to know more about it, so I went in as an assistant coach as such again, within the main coaching structure, and worked with the main group, and I've worked a lot on the statistics side of it as well. So performance analysis and key indicators within the game, and conveying those messages back to players and management as well. I've done everything from GPS to carrying water. I've done it all, lads. So it'll be interesting now to get to grips and see where we can go again next year with things.
And is the ultimate aim at some point down the line to be a manager? Is that you're involved in a coaching setup?
Yeah.
And I suppose, because it's not an obvious question, and people are going, of course it must be, but some people want to be managers, some people want to be coaches. It sounds like if you're interested in the GPS and you're understanding the logistics side of stuff, that actually the whole management side of things is of genuine interest as well as just the coaching.
Yeah, it's important to have an understanding. I'm one of those people who, you get into an environment, you're getting in to do your job, but you want to have an understanding of how the whole machine works, and why we're doing things. I'm a big why person, and anyone who's managed me as a person on the field, I often ask the why. So, right, we have a puck out structure and this is the way, but why are we doing that? What are we trying to achieve out of it? So I'd be quite inquisitive, in that sense, and I want to know how things work. And what better, I won't get a better environment than to explore, or an opportunity at least to explore and to at a top tier, with a top tier team, to get to know the functions of a high performance team. So what the future holds, I don't know. I'm really enjoying my time now. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to be present and learn as much as I can at this moment.
Do you have any idea yet what went wrong in the short period of time that this season was condensed into from a Wexford perspective?
Yeah, just such a strange year, Our league form was good. We were coming good in the league. The atmosphere in the camp is fantastic, real positive. And then all of a sudden, obviously, the pandemic broke, the virus broke. guys went into lockdown and just they worked their arses off, if I'm being honest. And they came back, and when we regrouped in June, they were in the best shape we've ever seen them in, and that's really down to our top fitness team. Graham Byrne has been working hard on that, and our physio team as well, just keeping the guys in check. And us as coaches would have linked in with players, and we would have done a lot of analysis work online as well, just to keep the mind ticking and the body ticking. Obviously the club championship came then, and I think the Wexford's situation was unique, where football, the full championship was ran without disruption, and the full championship was ran with hurling without disruption as well. So players, the majority of our squad would play both, and when your club comes calling, you're not going to turn them down. So that took place, and then when we reconvened, the guys were in good form and good shape again, and obviously by the last two performances that they were quite flat. So it's there's no excuses. A lot of conversations have been had since the game, the Clare game, and the guys are just really disappointed how it all ended, and so are the management team. But that will give us the fire to pick up and go again. And we're just asking probably the people and supporters in Wexford to keep the faith. And it was just a strange year, Ger. That's all I can say. Is if you look at the data side of things, in terms of winning breaking ball off puckouts, our puckouts, their puckouts. If we take the game, the Clare game, for instance, we just were nowhere near where you need to be even competing. Getting in the tackle, we weren't in the tackle at all. So, if you're looking for the black and white, those are two aspects. But other than that, we feel that we were possibly just a little bit flatter than we should have been.
Yeah, and I guess the good thing, and Tony Kelly made this point as well, is that there's not really that much time to lick your wounds. Everybody's back in the gyms fairly soon, if not already, and the league starts again in February, and away you go. Yeah,
in this game you can't feel sorry for yourself. You just have to jump out of the bed next morning, and you just have to take whatever's been thrown at you in terms of everyone will have their own kind of analysis of what happens. So you just you agree with Everton, Ger. And you just you have to move on and keep focus of what's ahead, because we'll be back fairly soon on the pitch. Obviously the lads have to have a bit of a break mentally as well, but they're not the group of guys that we have, they're not the type of players to roll over and just accept what happened. They're an incredible bunch. They're highly motivated, they're competitors, and they want to do well for Wexford. So they know themselves that they have bits and pieces that they want to work on over the next couple of weeks before we get back collectively.
It's an underrated part of being a GA coach, I guess, in that you've got to have a lot of patience for the idiots who come up to you and tell you, do you know what you should have done now? Do you know who you should have picked? So,
It starts in the shop at home. It doesn't start with the media. You can handle the media.
You just have to agree with them. That's a killer line. Mags, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Mags Darcy there, Liberty Insurance Ambassador, talking Camogie and her experience with the Wexford Hurlers. And there's speculation that Mags is going to be the head coach, essentially, of the team. I think it was Donegal Boyle who had that story during the week. So whenever that is announced, we'll obviously be covering it here on OTB